Welcome back to Professional Insights, brought to you by the National Referral Network, where conversations here are helped to drive everybody's vision of what financial services is. And I have to apologize, I've been a little under weather, so I got some snot in the brain. So if I fumble a little bit, excuse me for that. And I understand, Rob, you've got the same kind of thing going on in your house, yeah?
Oh yeah, a bunch of sick kids in the next room.
Lovely. So, so awesome. So we have Rob Campbell here this morning with Omega Accounting. Rob is works on the business incentive side, and as a disclaimer, Rob is not a CPA. So Rob, real quick, jump into what you do on the business incentive side without being a CPA. How does that work?
Sure. So when you think about a CPA firm, traditionally, they have a number of different types of work they can do for you. For example, they can sign tax returns, they can do audits. There are all these different niche specialty programs out there that really only the largest CPA firms are equipped to tackle, where they keep folks like me in a back room and feed us a lot of coffee. But when you get down to, say, the small to mid-sized CPA firms, more your regional CPA firms, they typically don't have the resources to process, what might be a one-off program for them, or something that requires a unique solution, whether it's technology or talent or experience, because it doesn't really align with the traditional wheelhouse of what CPAs do. And so my background is I bounced around at a couple different CPA firms over the years, and I've worked on tax returns and done all that traditional work. But at the end of the day, for 18 years, I've been doing nothing but helping businesses uncover essentially money for what they were already doing, whether it's hiring people, whether it's purchasing certain types of equipment, creating jobs, opening up in a new location. There are tax incentives, there's cash benefits, there's discounts, there are all sorts of different monies to be realized, essentially, for normal business operations. And a lot of folks just don't realize that money's out there. And so that's been my niche for the last 18 years.
So Rob, you and I spoke about this right before the call, and I've said this on this interview before. I really don't mean to pick on CPAs, but I'm going to. And I probably should just stop saying I'm not going to pick on them, because I do all the time. Not because of the value that they create. It's just like you mentioned, and I just want to get clarity on this. A lot of CPAs are doing their tax returns. And what I hear, they don't have the bandwidth. And so I want to be very clear. If you work with a CPA, you are not there to steal their client. You are there to enhance their practice. Am I getting that correct?
Yeah, correct. That's why CPAs work with me. Is I don't do tax returns anymore. I don't sign the forms. I don't do that work. I need a CPA to do that for me. I'm doing all the back end paperwork and reporting that leads up to one line item on a tax return. And then I'm helping the CPAs figure out how to navigate their tax software to get it in there. But we're not actually, doing audits or signing tax returns. So we're not competing with them. We're just focused on these niche departments that frankly would just be too expensive for the CPA to staff up themselves. And it's a very niche set of, tax law. Like, it doesn't apply to everybody. It's not going to fit all my clients. So does it really make sense for a CPA to be an expert on that, as opposed to leverage someone like me, who this is all I've done for 18 years?
Now, let's go over that real quick. What's a brief overview of these business incentives? And then how do you help the business owner kind of recognize those and bring in that? We joked before too, free cash. It's not free, but how do you work with the business owner and the CPA to identify what those are and then help them get that money back?
Sure. So let's start with an easy one. There's one called the Work Opportunity Tax Credit.
Okay.
And the basic idea is, if you're hiring people who have some kind of barrier to employment, you get a tax credit. It could be anywhere from $2,400 to $10,000 per new hire, right? But the whole idea is you have to interview them about whether or not they have one of these barriers to employment before you hire them. So we built out a technology solution. They fill out a survey. Yes, I live here. Yes, I have a family member on government assistance, whatever it is. And then on the back end, we go through the whole certification process. So it's more or less invisible to the employer, but at the end of the year, they have a report that says, here's all the people I hired who qualified, they're all certified, and now we can claim, $50,000 in tax savings that we were entitled to, because we're creating jobs for these folks. We just didn't know we had to put the paperwork in place for it. And that can be as simple as you hired someone who lives in a rough neighborhood.
Okay, and from what I understand, there are quite a few government programs, federal, state, and local. In your experience, I mean, what are the some commonly overlooked business incentives that CPAs may not be aware of, and the businesses are definitely not aware of?
Sure. So each state kind of has their own playbook, right? But to give you an example of another one, in California, if you're a manufacturer or you're doing some kind of research, you don't have to pay all the sales tax on the equipment you buy.
Hmm.
And most businesses don't realize that. And it's just as simple as, there's a form you fill out, and when you buy a big piece of equipment or whatever, you give it to your vendor and you say, hey, you need to discount my sales tax by over 50%. And that's all it is. And then your equipment's cheaper.
That's it. I mean, a single form, a single line item, reduction of the taxes on the equipment.
Yeah, and for context, sales tax in California, is around 10.5%. If you're spending $1 million and you can save, 6 or 7% just by turning a form over to the vendor, that makes a lot of sense, doesn't it?
And I'm sorry, Rob, I'm just kind of baffled here because it goes back to why aren't CPAs telling business owners this? Every CPA should be telling their business owner this.
It's very niche stuff, like I said, and the rules change all the time. And what's true in California is different in Oregon, is different in Louisiana, is different in Georgia. Let's talk about another incentive. There's a federal program, the Research and Development Tax Credit, right?
Okay.
And that's good in all 50 states. But then there are 37 different states that conform to that tax credit in some form or fashion. They change the numbers, they change what you have to do to get it. And if you hold your breath long enough, Louisiana will change their mind again, or Oregon will get rid of it and then bring it back. So keeping up with all these state and local issues, that's something that you really do at the enterprise level. And that's something I did for years for very large corporations. But there are programs available to small and mid-sized businesses that they don't realize they have. And that's part of what we do, is not just telling folks, hey, these are the things you're entitled to, but also this is just noise. You don't need to worry about this stuff. It doesn't apply to you, and helping them filter through all that.
So I know that over the last couple of years with COVID, the IRS has really moved the goalpost on some of these things and filing, and they offered some tax incentives from various states because of natural disasters. How how often do these tax laws change at a local or state level?
Oh, all the time on a rolling basis.
Do they
Um,
really?
yeah, and federally, they've really kind of embraced it. So a lot of folks are familiar now with the COVID credits that, our firm helps folks process that too. But it's kind of opened a lot of business owners' eyes to the fact that tax credits are everywhere. And I think everybody kind of knows deep inside that they're not quite getting their fair share in terms of everything they're entitled to when they sign their taxes at the end of the year. It's always a juggling act, right? I'm on extension. I got to get my books closed out. I need to do this, this, and this. And so part of what we do for our clients is we're helping them keep those filing deadlines in mind. Sometimes with these incentives, you got to register on the front end in order to get it, especially with the different states. Like Colorado is a great example. You got to sign up front before you hire a bunch of people, or you don't get the tax credit at the end of the year for hiring all those people. And so having somebody where this is all they're focused on is where are these goalposts, where are these compliance markers, to just register me. All you have to do is sign up. And then at the end of the year, you get the savings for the stuff that you would have done anyways, because you're growing your business or you're hiring more people.
So there's
Or
not a lot
you're,
of documentation needed. I mean, I know that not all of them are the same. I know I have a client went through cost segregation,
Mhm.
and obviously you have to get a valuation on the property. There's a lot of nuances with something like that. But some of these things like the R&D tax credit, the employee retention, the worker opportunity, like what kind of documentation is needed to help start this conversation?
Sure. So each one's kind of unique, but at the end of the day, there needs to be some kind of underlying support. So when we talk about the R&D tax credit, right, which, by the way, the name is a complete misnomer. It should just be, the credit for technical activity in the U.S., because it's a much broader definition than just, chemists and pharmacists cooking up drugs. It's any kind of technical activity essentially in the U.S. But when we talk about that, you're supposed to have a report that says, this is what we did. This is why it's considered R&D in light of 35 years of case law. And here's how we went about figuring that out. And I always say the most important thing also is look at how reasonable we were, all the things we didn't claim as we go through and prepare one of those reports.
Okay.
And then that's something that we turn over to the CPA. And then the CPA does the tax return, just like they always would.
So you've got an ever-changing tax environment. You've got documentations at different levels. How how far can a business go back, or can they go back retroactively to claim some of these business incentives? And on some of them, how far can you go back?
Yeah, so it varies. Some of them are only proactive. Again, you got to register up front. But like when we talk about the R&D tax credit or some of the California incentives that have been out there for a while, you can go back to file a federal refund up to 3 years. So just like the IRS can audit you for up to 3 years, you're allowed to audit them for 3 years.
Ooh,
And then
didn't know
depending
that.
on which state you're in, maybe it's 3 years. In California, it's 4 years. It just depends on what the rules are for a given region.
Wow, I didn't know. I didn't know I didn't know it was considered auditing the IRS. I like that. I'm going to audit the IRS.
Yeah, you can go back and amend your returns and say, hey, we forgot this. There are rules around how you do it, but most of our new clients, that's what we're doing. And some of these businesses, they've been around for 60, 80 years.
Yeah.
And they say, yeah, we looked at this, but we didn't think it qualified. And then you go back and say, oh my gosh, you've missed out on $20 million over the last 30 years.
Wow.
I hate to be the bearer of bad news because I'm in the business of giving people money, right? That's why I got out of doing traditional tax work, is all I do is give people good news now. But sometimes people look back and they say, I knew I wasn't getting my fair shake, but I had no idea how much money I've lost here.
I mean,
and again, it's not the CPA's fault.
Yeah. Well, it is. It is, Rob. Let's just call a spade a spade. It is the CPA's fault. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I don't mean to pick on them. I really don't. But the business owners, that is a great resource that business owners lean to. It's like going to a physician, and we put these professionals on pedestals, right? And sometimes it's not warranted. And I used to sell medical devices, and there's a difference between a good surgeon and a bad surgeon. There's a difference between a good CPA and a bad CPA. And what I've talked to business owners about quite often is that at the end of the day, are they going to cut your check if your business goes under because they didn't manage cash flow or they didn't help you manage cash flow? Are they going to cut your check as you go into retirement? And the answer is no. If you feel that you're not getting the answers from your CPA, then get a new CPA. Like, that's your business, control it. It's your money. And I don't mean to jump on a soapbox, Rob, but it literally talk to business owners all the time. Like, I'm not happy with my CPA. How long have you been with them? 7 years. Why? Like, find a new one.
And I've been in a similar boat. We came in and we did a project. We turned it all over. The CPA did it, and the CPA goofed. Even after he, for 20 years missed out on this thing, CPA goofed and cost them another $150,000 because they didn't get it in time. And the business owner still said, "Hey, I'm not. Bob's my guy, right? I'm never going to leave Bob. I've been with him 20 years." And we said, "Okay, that's fine, but I'm going to hold Bob's hand for the rest of this project, right? And make sure we're actually getting everything we need in order to get across the finish line." And, we still got him over $1 million, so he was happy. But there was to your point, if the CPA can't do it, you need to bring in someone outside who can. And that's what I spend a lot of time just telling CPAs where to find the screen in their software to get the tax return in correctly. That's one of the perks of having worked at a CPA firm, is I know the struggle. I get a lot of calls on April 14th.
Yeah, and it's just tough, Rob. And that's the problem, is that we've got this dynamic that we just talked about, that is, you don't know that you're eligible for. But what are some, I know we've talked about some of them, but what are some other common misconceptions business owners need to be aware of when it comes to these business incentives?
I think the biggest one is just, I don't qualify, or it's not for me, right?
Right.
You'd be amazed. I've worked with firms where they have 10 employees, and you think, well, how much tax savings can I really get from one of these specialty programs? Hundreds of thousands of dollars. Granted, it's like a small software company, right? But the savings are 6 figures, especially when you can go back and pick it up retroactively. And then I've worked with firms that grew very quickly, and one year they weren't paying any tax. The next year they were staring at a 7-figure tax bill. And that's when we came in and essentially negated that for them, right? So to the extent that you don't have to pre-certify and register or anything like that, and we can just come in and clean things up, it's great. But in that same token, when you said, hey, it doesn't apply to me, it's because you never asked.
Right.
In California, we have a job training program where you have to come in and you say, hey, for the next 2 years, I want to train my employees. And they'll reimburse you. If you put 20 people in a classroom, they'll give you nearly $500 for 1 hour of putting them in a classroom. And you can do that over 2 years. How many hours of training could you invest in your workforce? These grants are worth hundreds of thousands of dollars in cash. It's not a tax incentive. It's straight cash for training your people. But you have to go put an application in or you never get the money.
That's it. Just an application.
Yeah. And then you submit the compliance. Well, we help with them, but you submit the compliance says, here are the people I trained. Here's what I trained them on. Here's how many hours we did it. The government sends you a check.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, Rob, we're at our time here, but I really appreciate it. I know that you and I haven't had conversations before this, and you're not completely familiar with the National Referral Network. But really, the design of the network is to build those teams around professionals like yourself to be more. So, I mean, I know that you haven't worked within the network, but you understand the value of a team. So, as you work with these CPAs and you work with business owners, how important is it for them to realize that they have a team behind them? And then two, if they don't, how important is it for them to build the team that's all working together, in your opinion?
Well, it's very important. That's the first thing they teach you out of accounting school is there's a network of people, whether it's insurance, bankers, accountants, lawyers, that whole circle of specialists that you need, real estate professionals, to really run your business and maximize the profits that you could be earning for it. You need a team of competent people in order to assist you. That's the first thing they teach you in business school too, or at least that's what I'm told.
That's what, that's what I'm told as well. So Rob, thank you so much. For everybody listening, Rob's contact information is going to be in the description below, his email and the company's phone number. Rob, I did not put your cell phone number on there, so you're welcome on that. If you guys have any questions, please drop a comment below, share the email or share the video. If there's anything we can do to help you guys either get connected with Rob or any of these other professionals in the National Referral Network, please let us know. We're here to help and build that team so you have clarity moving forward with your business. So Rob, thank you again for jumping on. I know it was kind of short notice, but really appreciate you being here.
Yeah, always happy to get up early and get a cup of coffee. So
love it. Have a great, happy Thanksgiving too, by the way.
Yeah, same to you.
Okay, have a good day, bud.